So Nathan, I sent something to you this morning that you're in Ohio, and I was like, if anybody's going to be able to tell me WTF is going on with the train derailment that we all heard about, which is not in the news. What is in the news is all these things that are floating around all over North America, apparently in China. We're going to cover it in a show later today on Sunday about what is also over the UK. It's all kinds of insane, and you seemed surprised by that information I sent you about the train derailment. You seemed, yeah. I have crumbs on me because I just ate lunch because I wasn't planning on it.
Yeah.
Tell me about this. Where are you in relation to that train derailment?
Well, I'm in Central Ohio, so the train derailment is all the way on the east border of Ohio, on the right next to Pennsylvania, about 15 miles north of the start of the Ohio River.
Yeah.
So that's where East Palestine is. So I think that's a little bit north of Central, as I recall, looking at the map. But the problem that you've got in there is not. I mean, obviously, government line, that's always a problem, but it's also no shock whatsoever.
Yeah.
But the problem that you have is not just the immediate area of destruction, because that's bad enough. You got all these people, who knows what lifelong impact this. The derailment's not the problem. The problem is the gathering of all of the train cars.
And what was done, and the action that was taken in blowing up. Now, why this is important, PVC. Now, we've all been around PVC pipes. PVC is in a lot of raincoats. PVC is in a lot of things. Cured PVC, which is non-reactive. You can't breathe it in. You can't suck it in through your skin, your epidermis, everything like that. Uncured PVC is very different, and that's what was blown up. Now, I've seen a lot of different statements as to who decided to blow it up, because there was a conscious decision to blow these things up. And then we saw the big black cloud. Why is uncured PVC a big deal? Well, you can go into that site, let's say an industrial waste site, and it could be months, sometimes a year after that. And if you're not wearing correct PPE, personal protective equipment, you will very quickly develop cancer. Very quickly develop cancer, depending on the degree of the toxicity of what this stuff is. What they've done in releasing this is on a scale that it can be seen from planes flying at 40,000 feet. It can be seen by satellites. That amount was released into the jet stream. But more importantly, is concentrated in that area on the Ohio-Pennsylvania border, and has now gotten into the watershed, is now in streams. You got the Great Lakes there, depending on wind conditions. We have pictures of animals, fish, pets, deleted. Just say that. They're
right.
Gone.
Well, and like the chickens laying eggs are extremely discolored.
So what does that mean? When you start talking about something that gets into the biology, and this is the key. This is absolutely, and I get my phone's blowing up with everything that's going on with these UFOs and balloons and all this other stuff. This doesn't just rinse itself out. This is one of those toxic type of things that it doesn't go away. And the fact that you're seeing chickens ingest feed or something else that then resulted to this is now part of them, it's saying that is being transferred through their bodily processes. This incredibly toxic, uncured PVC, and it is resulting in, one could say, being passed through generations in birth. Now, is a chicken anatomy very different from a human anatomy? Yes. The problem is that we don't know what's going to happen yet. And there are reporters who have been trying to cover this. And I think it was about a week ago, an article came out that said there was a reporter from an independent media that was covering this train derailment after there was a news blackout. And he was violently arrested by the police trying to take pictures and report on what was going on over a train derailment in the United States. And, you know, I kind of buried this thing. And then the stuff with the balloons came along. And I started seeing other independent reporters out there saying, what are they distracting us from? Because this is just crazy, right? I mean, this is nuts, okay? What are they distracting us from? Well, very possibly the greatest man-made environmental, ecological disaster potentially ever that would rival Chernobyl. And the problem with this is that it is so insidious, and once it gets into the ecosystems, like the groundwater, like river water, you talked about a particular body of water that's very concerning. And I'm going to bring Purple Valkyrie in. Purple, I know you've been listening backstage. We were just talking about what's going on. We were talking about some of the pictures because Nathan saw the video that was done by Salty Cracker, and I've looked at other sources as well. But, I mean, what's your sense on this, Purple Valkyrie? And then I want to kick it to our man in Ohio, because this stuff is crazy. But ever since March of 2020 and 2 weeks to slow the spread, there's absolutely nothing. There are no more conspiracy theories. There's just polycrisis. We were told by our global elite betters at Davos, get ready for polycrisis. Go ahead, Purple Valkyrie.
Yeah, creating a man-made disaster, an ecological disaster that is unprecedented. In I can't remember the last time that we've had such a huge crisis that's kind of being swept under the rug at the moment. But I saw a lot of videos. I've seen footage that people have taken, especially of the fish that were floating downstream, belly up. Even though we've got reporters in the foreground saying that it's okay, the water's safe to drink. Don't mind that. Don't mind the fish. But I think it's incredible that they've created this response to what was a already terrible disaster and made it 100 times worse by what has been done.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the problem that you have when mankind decides that they want to sit there and try and take care of things, especially when they want to sit there and take care of the environment. And the government will never, ever sit there and say, that they've done some things that will harm the environment, and they've done so intentionally. This is going to have some, no pun intended, downstream effects, because even though this is 15 miles north of the Ohio River roundabout, all those tributaries, all those little creeks and streams in the immediate area flow into the Ohio River there at the start of it. And what does the Ohio River do? Ohio River runs south and all the way around the state, wraps up around the Kentucky River, and dumps into the Mississippi.
The largest waterway that's out there. It is also critical because that is a waterway that literally, I would say arguably, divides the eastern and western parts of the United States. Like when you look at call signs for radio and TV stations, the reasons why ones on the East Coast have all W's, like W this and W that, and the ones west of the Mississippi have K's is because the river was the demarcation. I mean, that's how important it is geographically. Groundwater. I don't know if there's a water filtration filter system that can take out uncured PVC. I can guarantee you there's not one in place right now. And we actually have somebody that we know who works in water and waste treatment, who I'm going to talk with him. You know exactly who I'm talking about, our good man Steve. I do. These are things that, again, this is a carcinogen and on an unparalleled level, and you have blown it up and aerosolized it and put it into the air. You put it into the lower atmosphere, into the upper atmosphere, and also it's now into the groundwater and the water stuff as well. Not to mention, as we talked about, it is now infiltrating not just mammalian species, us, dogs, cats that are dying, also reptiles, fish, chickens, everything, birds, everything else. Now those birds that have this are going to fly somewhere, and they're going to spread that stuff somewhere else. The fish that we're seeing, these fish that are dead in the streams and in the rivers and everywhere else. Now, we're living in a world where we're told that cow farts and breathing, creating carbon, is killing the planet. And we've just witnessed something that legitimately would have never, ever happened if it wasn't for the very entities that are trying to tax and control us and tell us that we need to eat bugs and all these other types of things. I gotta believe that there's a possibility, and you guys please respond to this, that the reason why we're doing this grab-assing, chasing balloons around North America bullshit right now may be to distract us from what's going on in Ohio, not to mention what just happened in New Mexico with the pipeline exploding. You know, tell me what you guys think.
Yeah, and the Nord Stream as well, which has been kind of forgotten about, but is the major connection with Europe with the gas. This is where we get our energy from, and that's been kind of forgotten as well. This very much reminds me of a disaster that happened in the UK. It was the Sellafield, and for years and years, when this power station, the disaster happened, it was swept under the rug and people said that it wasn't a problem. It was only years down the line that we found out how huge a scale it was off the coast of Cumbria.
So what happened with that, Purple? Because I thought you were going to talk about Bhopal in India. We'll talk about that one if you're old enough to remember that one. But what happened with the power station?
It's also known as wind scale. So what it is, it was a large multifunctional nuclear site on the coast of Cumbria, and it stored nuclear waste. It was a processing, and it was also for decommissioning anything nuclear that we had. Basically, one of the generators, I believe, leaked. No, it wasn't similar to what happened in Fukushima, but it was bad. And for, as I said, for years and years, they said that this wasn't a problem. You know, they had it under control immediately, but that wasn't the case. We found out, and we had leaks, and it leaked into the ocean. It seeped into the ground. It seeped into water supplies, and it spread.
Radiation is a hell of a thing. That you're talking about a decay, depending on what type of matter it is. Some can be fairly short, but some can take tens of thousands of years, if not more. And when you're talking about radioactive waste, you're talking about some of the most toxic, resistant to decay elements of radioactive isotopes. Nathan, you're in Ohio. Is there any reporting on what's going on with this train derailment? Were there any images of that giant black cloud?
I don't pay a whole lot of attention, but my answer is no. I didn't see anything personally. Now, someone who does pay a little bit more attention than I do would be my brother and my wife. And I have not heard anything from them regarding that. And as a matter of fact, I sent the link that you had sent me and shot it out to my brothers-in-law and my brothers and my dad, and one of my brothers-in-law sent me back a picture of a balloon. You know, and you know, it's all there's something. All this stuff is distraction. What they're, I mean, even the stuff that you can read on the mainstream media stuff for the train derailment is hiding the real elements of what went wrong here.
Yeah.
And what went wrong here was government officials operating some sort of, it's got to be some sort of evil plan. I can't be
allegedly. Yeah, well,
right.
So it's either negligence, like you said. It's either done deliberately to produce an outcome, or it's incompetence, meaning maybe they had at least neutral intentions, but they were so stupid this is what they did. Those are the two options in front of us. So you're not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, well, and I can't imagine to sit there and think of what kind of waste is in this stuff to be so negligently stupid to do this, that it kind of, you'd have to, to me, you have to suspend a lot of disbelief to think that it wasn't intentional to some degree, or it's people following orders from offices far and away in some sort of beltway type of establishment.
That all makes perfect sense to me. It does, especially with what we were told, again, at Davos, the unelected government officials, the ones who tell us we're going to own nothing and like it, that we would eat bugs. These are not conspiracy theories. This is what they've said.
Yeah.
This is what they've said. And Nathan, you and I have talked about Luciferian doctrines offline. Again, not necessarily from a biblical or Christian perspective, but from a philosophical perspective as to what a Luciferian doctrine means. And what that really means, again, is that if someone is going to harm you and they're a Luciferian and they believe in Luciferian doctrine, if they say to you, I am going to create something that everyone has to inject in their body, and I'm going to create it in like 3 weeks, and then it's probably going to cause changes to your biochemistry, probably cause cancer, probably cause people to drop dead suddenly. And then I'm going to practice it. I'm going to create little setups where we do this thing as a simulation months in advance, and then it's going to happen. And then once it happens, if you go along with this, and if you buy what they've been telling you and what they've told everybody to tell everybody, which is safe and effective and everything's fine, and you take that poison thing, that the fault is not on the evil person who came up with this idea to poison everybody. The fault is on you as an individual for taking it, because that person who created this, they warned you. They give you every opportunity, if you would educate yourself, if you'd be aware, to avoid this. But if you took it, that Luciferian in their doctrine, it's your fault. They're guiltless. Here we are. Here we are, 2 weeks to slow the spread. Here we are. We're dealing with a whole bunch of things. We got people in Davos talking about Hollywood and how they're pushing agendas, the not secret agendas that we all see. And they're very proud of it. And we have entertainment companies that are losing money and laying off thousands of people that said we have to keep doing this because it's relevant. We also now live in a world where on a Saturday, February 11th, we have suddenly fighters scrambling across North America, in Canada, the United States, shooting down things off the northern coast of Alaska, in the Yukon, chasing things around Montana, then saying there are things there, then there aren't things there. And then now there are things there. Now we have reports today that have been breaking on Sunday, February 12th, that over the Great Lakes, over Lake Michigan, there has been something else that's there, and multiple fighters have been scrambled from Marionette in northern Wisconsin, as well as an Air Force base in Madison, Wisconsin, not to mention other ones, I believe, in Gary, Indiana as well. And there are multiple Stratotanker jet refueling ships that are circling as well. We actually have flight data for that. And here we are. But one thing we're not hearing about is this thing in Ohio. Are the two related? I don't know. But it's awful coincidental if it's not. You know?
Well, it's tough to... Even if the mainstream media was wanting to fit this into their news cycle plans, it's tough to fit that in to your half-hour news program when you've got all these other things going on that are going to make the talking heads go abuzz. You know, because they are either in bed with the operation, or they are just pawns in what is said to be the big news of the day. You know, and it doesn't eliminate the care for human life that has absolutely been destroyed in just the near area of East Palestine, but there is a much greater area, especially when, like you said, Corey, the jet stream, that's going to have massive effects for northeastern U.S.
Here's an interesting thing, and you just said the magic word, the jet stream. What if these balloons that have been being shot down or that we're chasing around are tracking the levels of raw PVC in the atmosphere, in the upper atmosphere? Purple Valkyrie, what's your take on this? On what Nathan just said in the media? I haven't been able to watch mainstream media since probably Obama's third week in office, and at that time I was elected. I was a Democrat. My brother worked for a campaign for that man. And as soon as that individual took office, I immediately started to go to all the sites that they told me I shouldn't listen to that are crazy. And within a very short amount of time, I began to sort of do my red pilling. And that it's one of those things where like Neo in the Matrix, you know, is like I kind of miss that juicy red rare piece of steak living in the Matrix where there's good guys.
Ignorance
and
is
bad guys.
bliss.
Yeah, but at the same point, I wouldn't trade it for anything, you know. And I'm lucky and I'm blessed because I have family members that are also red pilled as well, and of course friends here. Purple Valkyrie. The UK media is a special kind of demonic joke. To be honest about that,
Yes.
I don't ever need to see any more Sam Smith in some tragic thing, or any more you know, chicks with like really tragic plastic surgery plating their, you know, bubble butts and thongs on TV. What is going on, and how are they covering any of this? Was there any whisper of this train derailment stuff in the UK? I mean, is there anything about the balloons? I mean, what are you seeing out there?
The balloons, yes, that was covered. I mean, I, like you, don't watch mainstream media anymore. I don't even have a TV license because I won't watch terrestrial TV, but it was covered, and it was covered pretty much just the same as you guys were covering the, you know, the tracking down, and then they reported that they'd been shot down. I haven't seen anything in the past probably 24 hours since we started really getting into the detail of what's been going on last night and into this morning and into today. But you're absolutely right. It is very much a dumbing down of the media, and it's a drip feeding what they think the population needs to hear rather than what is actually out there. There is no non-partisan news outlet anymore. It's either one side or the other, and they will always, you know, toe the line to whoever is in charge, whoever is in government. That's been the way for decades.
It is interesting that the credibility of people who I marginally follow in the media includes Joe Rogan. To a certain degree, although I'm not entirely sold on it, Tucker Carlson. I don't know what's going on with Tulsi Gabbard and some of the stuff that she says. I'm just saying I'm hearing some interesting things. David Paulides, you know, arguably a Bigfoot researcher. There's a lot of things that are going on. One thing we're not trying to do is tell you what to think. We're just trying to say, like, this is strange, isn't it? And it's strange the timing of this. And then I still don't know what happened with Turkey. I still don't understand that, because we had that crazy, like, looking cloud thing that appeared over Turkey. And then a few days later, we have this catastrophic earthquake. And then, of course, Reuters releases a statement saying, well, they're not connected at all. What is interesting about who owns this railroad? So this railroad company is Burlington Northern, Suffolk. I need to pull this stuff up. So it would look... Yeah, it says Burlington Northern, Suffolk, something or other. Warren Buffett. Know that name? Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett appeared to be the one who owns this railroad. This is a railroad who only a few months before this derailment lobbied heavily against any type of regulation or improvements of safety standards on train lines. Now, this is not the first time toxic things have derailed on trains. There were several derailments of oil that have occurred on train lines. But one thing we haven't seen is something quite as toxic as this. And the other thing we haven't seen is a complete absence of this from the news media. What is weird is, how are you going to cover up all of the death and toxicity and loss of animal life and the increase in cancer? Oh, yeah. Nathan just sent me something privately. Yeah, all those government agencies, in my opinion, are co-opted. Co-opted with the same type of thinking that has co-opted Hollywood. You know, now you can call it woke, you can call it ESG. The fact is, these organizations, in my opinion, are infiltrated by the same stooges. You know, they're middle management wonks. They don't care. They just want power. They just want money, in my opinion. And they're all serving a much greater cause, and that is money, whether that comes from China, whether that comes from Davos, whether that comes from, you know, Klaus or Bill or the other Bill or who the hell knows. This is the world that we live in, and they've warned us about it. I think what's going to be really interesting is that we live in a world where you have 13, 14, 16-year-olds, 20-year-old perfectly, 30-year-old perfectly healthy athletes dropping dead every day. Not reported in the media. Wonder why.
Yeah.
Wonder why.
Well, I mean, you look. I mean, it's over in Purple's neighborhood like crazy with soccer. It is all over the place, and in Eastern and Western Europe. I mean, it hasn't been quite as bad in the United States, at least from what we're hearing, anyway.
It is.
But it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But we've surprisingly heard no news of the Buffalo Bills player. I mean, or blessed little news about him. You know. I mean, is he still alive? Who knows? You know?
I thought he was, but they went out of their way to say that it wasn't the jab, and I think there's reasons to believe that it wasn't. But I was just reading an article about a 14-year-old girl, swimmer, died in her sleep. 16-year-old boy died while running. You know, I'm old apparently, but in the 80s, in the 70s, in the 90s, in the 2000s, hell, any time before March of 2020. This wasn't a thing. And something happened. I don't know what it is, but something happened.
I think the most stunning thing is what we're being told not to do anymore. So we're getting reports from the media saying don't eat eggs. That's bad for you. Don't play computer games. That's bad for you. It can get your heart rate going. And don't watch too much TV. Don't do this. Don't do that. Everything that they can avoid to distract people from what the actual probable root cause of this is.
If you're interested, you know, I mean, was this a deliberate crash? I don't know. I don't think so. I'm not trying to sell somebody on what this was. The fact is we have this situation now, and from everything that I can see, and I think in anyone, Purple, Nathan, speak up, this appears to be something that's being actively suppressed and not talked about. And
I believe so, yes. And they're blaming a broken axle, if I remember correctly, for the actual source of this particular crash. But you're absolutely correct. This isn't something that has never happened before. We had one in 2013 in Quebec, I believe. In 2020, there was one outside of Saskatchewan. And then there was also one in Kentucky that derailed as well.
Yeah, and these were generally oil shipments. And you know, the problem with the railroads are one of the most efficient, cost-effective ways to ship things, but they do require maintenance. And when you're talking about places that have four-wheel seasons, iron rusts, things buckle. It costs money to maintain those things. When you're a company, kind of more interested in profits, unless of course you're Disney and Paramount. What were you going to say? Go ahead.
The thing is while it's tough to believe that the crash was intentional, I don't think you can discount it because of where it occurred. Right at the head of a major river that happens to feed a huge populace of this country. You know, and again, I don't know. I can't speak truth to that one way or the other, but there's a lot of this that smells real bad. No, and literally and figuratively.
They've made no secret of what it is that they want. There's too many people on the planet, you know? And it would appear, based upon the research I've done, please form your own conclusions, that there's too many people on the planet that are Judeo-Christian, educated, like capitalism, and really want democracy. That appears in Western civilization. It appears that there's too many of those people. But if you're docile and used to being subservient, and this is the language of the world economics. It's not me being racist. They want people to be good little slaves. You know, in case we haven't noticed that, you know, a lot of our borders don't exist because borders were white supremacy. Where have I heard that before? Oh yeah, Sleepy Joe. We need to apparently they want to get rid of all the people who made Western civilization. They want to bring them in with people who have no interest in doing that. And that appears to be what's happening. I could be wrong.
Well, and if you look at the flow of the river, let's say that you know we're going to buy into the tinfoil hat kind of thing. But if that's the case, are there any major media hubs that are anywhere along the Ohio River and down the Mississippi? Like, is Chicago there? No. New York? LA? No. You are hitting straight through Middle America, where you have a bunch of Bible Belt, gun-toting, Second Amendment loving, I will shoot you before you hit my property attitude type people.
And I'm not eating the bugs.
Yeah.
I'm not going to own nothing and like it. And not a big fan of, oh boy, manufacturing outcomes of certain events like elections and things like that. Yeah, and there's that. I don't care. YouTube's going to take my channel out anyway. But yeah, just to finish this up, wanted to talk about this with you guys just because, you know, we spent about an hour and a half last night covering all those balloons and the shoot downs and then all these other things, and it's continuing on today. We're going to talk about it in the live show for Valkyrie.
Yeah.
But this thing kept popping up from other independent reporters, and I wanted to discuss it with you, and I wanted to get the lay of the land from you in Ohio, Nathan. And it does sound like, despite how serious this is, it is not being reported on at all, which to me is deeply concerning.
Yeah. You know, that's why you have these hubs like Rumble and Odyssey and BitChute and whatever can make it through the shadow banning on YouTube that are vitally important to at least getting this information out there so that people can inform themselves then and make their own conclusions about this information. That's what's important. People thinking for themselves and determining in their own mind how they need to proceed. But, you know, people that live in that area in East Palestine, there's no doubt you need to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
You are in you're under a dire threat.
Yeah. And you know, none of us are toxicologists. None of us are, well, I used to be a firefighter. None of us are qualified as emergency management specialists to give any advice other than our personal opinion. But I think this is going to take a lot longer than 3 or 5 days.
Agreed. We're not doctors and we don't claim to be, but having been told what was on those on that train, and if there was a control burn, that it could create a phosphine and hydrogen chloride concoction, well, that is highly toxic.
Yeah. So here we are. Just wanted to put that out there. Please do your own research. I think we're going to see more of this unidentified flying object or unidentified aerial phenomenon or whatever ridiculous stuff this is. I don't know what any of this means. I'm hoping to share this with you so that we all together can come up and think critically about this. I do think this stuff in Ohio is absolutely despicable and insane. Would it surprise me that this administration would be doing everything they could to suppress this if they are, in fact, responsible for the decision to detonate that and release uncured PVC into the atmosphere, in the upper atmosphere, so it can now circle around the globe and poison everybody a little bit. But just remember, the jet stream flows where it goes. I would anticipate a lot of really sick people in a lot of concentrated population areas of the East Coast from this. I don't want that to happen, but I would anticipate that from happening. I'm Salty Traveling C. That's Amanda Manethrin. That there's Purple Valkyrie. Thanks everybody for checking this out. Please, if you like what we do, leave a thumbs up. We'd love to hear your comments on this. Again, we're not trying to tell you what to think. We're just trying to get you to think. And we would love to hear your input as well. We'll be seeing you all real soon. Thanks for watching. Take care.